Asi kune vamwe vakataura kuti vakatobudisa maresults avo siyateta maelection ava vabuyi ko munozovingei makatonyora maresults kuti achabuda akadai to hell nemwe toda vasati vanoda kuzovona zvinenge zvichiitika because we are transparent.
It has not been normal. People's vote must count. The citizens' vote must count.
Now, democracies across the world have put elections as the centerpiece or the crux that puts what you call social cohesion, a social contract between the governed and those who govern. And if these elections are not held properly, if these elections are not held in such a manner that those who are governed are satisfied that they've given their authority to the person in power, these have always turned out, in some instances, the birth of a coup, violence, and internal strife in nations affecting development. Now on this, the Free Talk, in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation for Freedom, we are going to explore elections as a source of peace, the absence of democratic elections as a source of violence. Now join me just after this break and I will introduce you to my guest who I'm going to have deep conversation on aspect of Africa, peace, development and elections, people, power. I'm your host as usual, Dara B. Join me after this break. Now this week, on this episode, I'm joined by one eminent and prominent Zimbabwean, a person who needs not much introduction. He's a father of faith, a father of peace, a man who has played a really big role in, firstly, just before independence, as he worked towards attaining majority rule in Zimbabwe. He's also played a big role in Zimbabwe in terms of ensuring that there's peace and cohesion after the liberation struggle. He played another big role recently during what has come to be known as a soft coup, or a coup rather, that brought in the president Emerson Mnangagwa to power, removing President Robert Gabriel the late. Now this is Father Fidelis Mkonori, author of the book Peace Runs in My Blood and the Genesis of Violence in Zimbabwe. These are just the books that I've just mentioned, but he has authored many. I want to welcome you, Father Mkonori, and thank you very much for joining me. Let us just maybe just as a way of opening, why are elections tied to peace? Maybe let's just talk about that.
Thank you. The difference between human beings and other animals is that human beings have decided to go through what we call democracy. Democracy is governed by a people who are chosen, democratically chosen. And this has taken almost 800,000 years to reach that part. Whilst other animals, the bigger, the better, and those who are big rule those who are small. That's the basic tenet. So, for the human beings, we have decided that it is essential to have those who have the blood of ruling. They rule by blood because they belong to certain families. And at the same time, today we are saying we also have to rule by choices. That is, we choose those whom we want to set us on the ruling. The ruled have a right to make a choice. And those who do the ruling are entitled to be chosen. If they are not chosen, therefore they cannot rule. No, I'm trying to take it to marry two distinctionalities of kingship, queenship, families, and kingdoms. Those never used to have anything to do with democracy. But because humanity has the tenets and the tentacles of improvement of life, therefore it makes it sensible that human beings have decided that beside to have those who have the crown of ruling as classes, they can also be married to people who too are chosen by the people who are being ruled. Why the difference? The difference is, in philosophy we say the difference is the same, but arguably the difference is not the same. The difference comes in when one says, when someone is making a ruling when one has not been chosen, that person can be ruled out. Why? Because the person is not ruling legitimately. Legitimacy comes in when people have sat and decided to raise their hands and vote, or have decided to go into the opinion polls, or they've decided to say these are the papers to vote for A, B, C. Those are essentials because of leadership ethics. Animals have no ethics in leadership, but human beings have ethics in leadership. I'm an ethicist as a theologian, and I know what I'm talking about. That's the issue.
So how does this then tie into peace? Because we want to establish first, before we go further, why elections are necessary or are a necessary tool for peace.
Necessity comes in because when people decided to choose who have to be their leaders, they are saying, therefore, whatever ruling these people shall give us, we shall abide. every citizen is entitled to abide by what has been said. For example, when we go into the judiciary system, parliamentary system, animals don't have this, other animals don't have these systems. But we have the executive, we have the parliamentary, and we have the issue that makes sure that we are governed legitimately by processes of power that comes through the judiciary system. Mm-hmm. So the sensitivities that goes with that is what we call ethics.
Amazing. Now, I want us to look at Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe has had contested elections for many years, but there's hardly been a time that we have said we don't have peace. Yet in this discussion we're talking about elections as a centerpiece for peace. Now, doesn't this contradict the thinking?
Contradictionalities always come and they always go. The issue to do with contradictions is to have a people who can sit down. If you are indeed an elected person and personality, you should not be shy and be afraid of being made to sit down by the people who have elected you. So those are the issues in Zimbabwe. Anyone who wants to contest should be in a position to be accorded by the citizenry to say, yes, there is indeed a situation where we think things have not been well. And those leaders who have been put in power at the judiciary side, who have been put in power as elected as leaders of the different parties, they have to be in a position to be asked by the citizens of Zimbabwe to say, now you sit down and you talk and you come up with a resolution. That's how men behave. That's how women behave. Women who have ethics, men who have ethics, that's the way to go about it. But you cannot keep going ad infinitum forever saying, well, the votes have been stolen. The votes have been stolen. Now, point out where the vote has been stolen and how they have been stolen. And the one you are accusing to say how the person is indeed stolen. We cannot continue to have a forever issue of saying we have had positions that are unequal. That has got to come to a zero minus. Because when you are an ethicist, you have a conscience which tells you that you are not being honest, or indeed you have stolen. Do you think political leaders have this conscience? Because let us, if we look at the history of Zimbabwean elections in 2008, 2007, a lot of people were beaten up, killed, or others actually even maimed for power. And it resulted in a government of national unity at the end of the day, but lives had been lost in Zimbabwe. In just after 1980, there was the Gukuraundi that the Catholic Church, where you come from, wrote extensively about and spoke about people who had been killed. Do you think that these people have a conscience? Well, those people exist Why don't you ask them if they have a conscience or not?
You're a father of faith. You pray for these people.
I pray for everyone, including the devil. Hopefully that the devil one day will also come back to you. Because the devil is still the son of God. Remember. That's why God has not destroyed the devil. So, what let's get back to the real issues. The issues are, we have to learn how to choose people who have a conscience. It's up to the citizens of Zimbabwe. It's up to the citizens on the African continent. It's up to the citizens in the world to say, these are the people we have chosen. Conscience is made. Conscience is not born. So conscience is made through education. Conscience is made through the various tentacles of leadership. Leadership training is critical. It becomes very hoodwinking to have a continuum of protest. Life is not for protest.
What is it about?
Life is lived to the full.
How is it possible to live life to the fullest when you're poor, poverty-stricken, and those who are causing you that continue to refuse to leave power unless there's a coup?
Coups are not meant to remove people from power. A coup is a sign that something is not right. So that is not the issue. That is why that in Africa we don't have to continue to have coups. And at some point in time, African Union had made a decision to say we should not assist people who go into positions of power through the coup. I don't know what has happened, but coups continue to remain in Africa. Probably what we need to understand is true. It has taken Western Europe nearly 1,000 years to come where they are. And that even though the Western Europeans are the ones who came with democracy, they didn't bring democracy to Rhodesia. No. They didn't bring democracy to Africa. No. They partitioned among themselves. Remember the 1885 in Germany, when partition of Africa was done, including the United States of America went also to join them. Now, so that is part of the duplicity of people. Let's leave that for another time.
Father Mkono, you're doing work with Center for Peace, and your call is to make sure that Africa stops these coups and ensures that there is peace in Africa, so that we can have development. But what is it that you are engaging with these African leaders or African citizens to ensure that this happens?
The Center for Peace Initiative in Africa is a brainchild from the Africa desk of the United Nations, going back 2000. That's where we come from. So when we are talking about peace, we are talking basic tenets that we have to engage in democracy, and the democracy is to do with people going every 4 years or every 5 years to choose their leaders. What is of necessity for us in Africa and in Zimbabwe included is that we have to educate our people what elections are for. We have to educate our people who should be chosen to lead a nation. To this day, Zimbabwe still ranks quite highly among the educated nation on the African continent. But when it comes to civic education, it's almost zero. When it comes to education, the education that we have in Zimbabwe, it's a zero. Why? Yet 1923, when the whites decided to kick out the British South Africa Company, they decided from 1923 that they would prefer to have a homegrown constitution, meaning from southern Rhodesia inside. A homegrown constitution. And part of the constitution is to do with civic education. Since 1923. So, and today we're in 2024. Why has civic education disappeared? To be part and parcel of the educational system. And yet, the rest of humankind in our universities, the rest of humankind in our governance, they've been educated in the Western capitals, in the Western universities. But when they come to Africa, they don't seem to remember and to have any idea of what it means to include civic education, to be part and parcel of the system. It baffles my mind.
If I tell you that this is done deliberately by people who want to retain power at all costs and think that what they have learned outside in the Western nations is what brings democracy, so they do the reverse engineering, would you think that is a plausible reason?
I challenge that. For a thinking people, if we are a thinking people, unless we just baffle anything that comes about, but we are thinking people, we cannot be in a position, my brother, to run this planet Earth, and let alone on the African continent, the only continent, by the way, which is the largest amount of mineral deposits today. And yet we have the poorest people coming from the African continent.
We blame this on colonization, don't we?
Yeah, anyone can blame anything on colonization.
But is it justified? After so many years of independence. Zimbabwe has been independent past 34 years. Is it justified to continue calling on the white colonization?
Let's ask the public what they think.
They want civic education from you, so tell them.
Well, that's what I'm telling them. Civic education is paramount. Civic education is paramount, not only in Zimbabwe, but on the African continent. For anyone who wants their country to succeed, civic education is paramount. I don't have to go on top of the roof like a cock.
Father Mkonori, you wrote a book, The Genesis of Violence in Zimbabwe. And this violence you were talking about was what happened during the Gukurahundi era. Do you think that we have moved away from that violence up to this day in Zimbabwe?
It is a very simple matter to do, to ask the population of the people of Zimbabwe how far we have come from since we have had two liberation wars, 1893 to 1897. That was the first liberation war. And then we had from 1966 to December 27, 1979, midnight, the second liberation war. Let people sit down and take stock and say see where we have come from, what we have covered, and that which we still are left, this which we have not yet covered. War of liberation is a war of liberation. And what you do the next time is, you are not going to talk about a liberation war. You are talking about civic education. Civic education is this is exactly what the people who colonized us never taught us civic education. They didn't want to.
Even those who rule us don't teach us civic education, do they?
Maybe they've learned it from the people they took power from. So that is what we have to say now. It is not possible for us to continue not to have civic education. That's what I'm saying. But one doesn't have to go out and they cry out until the cows come home. No. For a thinking people, an educated people, an educated nation, just have to know that civic education is paramount. And it is part and parcel which brings development in the country, any given country.
But let us talk about this item of violence, Father Mkonori, because just about a few years ago, you were talking to the National Peace and Reconciliation Commission, and you were saying that there are certain things that need to be corrected around Gukurahundi. Do you think that there's still fresh wounds and people crying out of that violence in Matebeleland?
My brother, the issue of Gukurahundi has a history. The people who were in power at the time, Zanu PF and the PF ZAPU, the leadership can best explain why Gukurahundi happened. People know what happened, but they don't know why it happened. There has to be some explanation of why it happened. And still, the justification will never come into fruition. isn't it? So what we are saying is, you cannot, it's not, committing evil on another person is not something you can wash with the soap, which you cannot even paint it on your lips with the lipstick. You cannot put it in lipstick. What is evil. And it is very clear for us in the church to say, thou shalt not commit evil against your neighbor. And that's the basic issue. So I would like those who were in power, when are we going to sit down and deal with the Kugrahundi issue and any other issue that has to do with lack of democracy, which requires civic education? Everything zeroes in on civic education. If you are not educated, there's no need for you to be chosen into power. So the issue is, who puts people into power in Zimbabwe? It's us, you and I. We are the people who vote. And when something goes amiss, we squeal.
But Father, you speak as if you don't know that during elections people are beaten up, kidnapped, some never to be seen again. How is that putting people into power?
Yeah, where have you put it to challenge the powers that be?
How do you challenge people who disappear you?
No, you don't challenge people who disappear, you challenge the people who disappear, who make people disappear.
How do you do that? Maybe if you give me that civic education, or give us, the people who are listening to you right now, that civic education, it could help.
It's not civic education, it is built on, in the parameters of when people are choosing people who have to be in power. You cannot be in a position to say you can make someone disappear and you are proud of it, and the people next door to you choose you to be next in parliament, to be next to be part of the ruling class. Why?
But that's happening in Zimbabwe, is it not?
Well, you show me what has happened in Zimbabwe, which has not happened elsewhere, not only on the African continent, but even in the capitals, in the Western capitals. We cannot make distinctionalities, and neither can we make we cannot make things equal by making people say this person disappeared, because there are so many people who disappear every day in our lives, including people in mothers' wombs also disappear.
Here we're talking about state-sponsored and elections and people who are disappeared for the sake of retention of political power. And this is what the Center of Initiatives of Peace in Africa talks about, that you want to be able to have people exercising free will and electing their leaders of choice. And my question to you is, how do you achieve that?
You achieve that by teaching civic education. Every citizen in Zimbabwe should learn civic education so that they know who to choose.
How do you deal with the aspect of fear?
Listen, You do not have to be afraid if you are honest. Do not be afraid if you are honest. So what you are saying is, when there are people who may go in the middle of the night to say, we want you to vote for so and so, that's what you are saying.
Yes. And they beat you up if you don't.
I don't want to say beat back. Okay? You cannot allow someone who has gone through education, who has gone through university, to come in the middle of the night to beat people up. Those are primitive methods of wanting to stay in power. And those are things we are saying, those are the issues which are not acceptable. So, we don't have to keep going around in circles. It has to be understood that civic education helps people to widen up their minds and their brains so that they can be in a position to say, this kind of behavior we don't like. This kind of behavior we like. This kind of attitude we don't like. This kind of attitude, this is, we go for it. And this is the way we would like to be governed.
Father, you have had the privilege to have the ear of those in power. You spoke freely with the late President Robert Gabriel Mugabe. You also spoke with the now President Emerson Mnangagwa. Have you had an occasion of telling them to have a conscience and of telling them to make sure that the people they lead have civic education and they make their choices freely as to who they governs them?
I'm not the only citizen in Zimbabwe. You are part of the citizenry. And you can also tell the president to say, let's have ethics and let's deal with these things properly. Let's run our country.
I have done that. Have you?
The record is there. The record is there.
Maybe for those who don't know the record, because we are speaking to those who don't know.
Well, they have to know that in Zimbabwe, those who are not afraid of speaking, speak out.
Isn't it that everyone must be able to speak out? Why should we be brave to speak?
Because life is for those who are brave. You don't have to be brave to eat mukondwesada, do you? You just have to be hungry and then we eat. When something is not right, you say so. This is not right. You are doing that to people who you know have the conscience of understanding that the rightness and the wrongness of an issue.
In your opening remarks, you said that as humans we are different. We are not supposed just to be governed by those who are brave and powerful like animals do, the law of the jungle. You said even as humans we understand that people's choices can be on a weak person. So why now are you saying that life is for the brave?
Every human being is brave. Every human being is brave. We should not underestimate ourselves and underestimate each other. You don't have to poke someone in order for the person to show that the person is afraid, or to show that the person is brave. It's cowardice to intimidate. We go to the dictionary, Shona dictionary, the very dictionary, English dictionary, for you to understand what I'm saying. It is for those who are non-brave to intimidate. So if you also cow to a person who is a coward, that's where we end up where we are.
Yeah, so the reason why I ask whether you have had an opportunity to tell, especially President Robert Mugabe the late, to have a conscience and to allow people to choose freely, is that he ended up being removed from office by coup, meaning that those who were around him, even his friends, knew that an election could not remove him from power. They needed guns. Now, how does a person who takes counsel from a man like you end up being deposed from power through a barrel of a gun?
Well, I never saw any guns being used there. I saw the language people saying, Mugabe, it's enough, you rest, and I advised him to do this, to do so. Say, people are saying, Zakwana, Kushungo, and he accepted to rest.
Father, my spiritual...
Let bygones be bygones. Let's deal with why the issues at stake.
How do we learn without understanding the past?
That's the purpose of civic education.
How do we get peace without healing, Father?
But that's the purpose of civic education. If you want peace, you work for it. You don't just pray for it, you work for it. So if you want peace on the African continent, yes. Look right across the African continent. It's as if we have never had any education at all. It's a sad day when we, the kind of generation that is there today, 2024, 2025, it's not fair for those who were there in 1963 when Organization for African Unity was formed.
Is it useful, that organization, Father?
It is.
How so? It has failed to stop coups, bloodletting. Look at what has been happening in Kenya. Not a single word has been. 25 people have had to die before a president withdraws a bill of parliament. 25 shot dead.
My brother, we have had 2 world wars by so-called civilized nation. So let's not keep going into issues that keeps bringing us back. We just have to move forward.
How do we move when we are dead, Father? Because you preach to the hearts of living people, and your people are being killed by governments with guns.
So you want me to take the guns and shoot those who are shooting?
I think I like your idea of Center for Initiative for Peace.
So let's do that.
Do you think that it can work?
It works. It has taken humanity over 1 billion years to be where we are today. It's taken 1 billion years to be where we are today. We don't need another 1 billion years to be somewhere where we will feel heaven on earth. Jesus came to teach us that before you go to heaven, we have to have a heaven among us. We have to teach each other as brothers. We have to handle each other as brothers and sisters. Period. I should be my brother's keeper. I should forgive my enemy. I should pray for those who do wrong to me.
What if they continue doing wrong, stealing your future? What do you do? Do you keep praying for them? Father?
Well, you want to kill them? Okay, if you want to go to kill them, then you kill them. Is that what you want? Jesus didn't take things the way you are taking it. I think you are taking it in a very naive way. Jesus said, when you slapped another chick on one cheek, turn the other cheek. But when Jesus was hit on one cheek, he didn't turn the other cheek. He said, if I have said anything wrong, say it. If I have not said anything wrong, why are you striking me? You challenge. Intellectual challenge, my brother, is not as simple and simplistic as we think. Once we have an educated mind, it helps also for people with an educated mind, it helps them to make sure that when ethics are being mentioned, naturally we go to take the good human ethics and apply them. But that does not mean to say everything will be rosy. No. Not all roses do not have thorns. Some roses have thorns. So you have to be careful how you pick roses.
Father, you were part of the consultants in the coming up with the constitution in Zimbabwe. And from the time that it has been in use up to now, do you think it has been a useful tool in ensuring a balance of power in Zimbabwe and bringing peace?
The constitution is never complete. It has to be it should be a continuum of progress and development.
And do you think ours is living up to that billing?
But the continuity means you have to continue to update it. I'm not a constitutional lawyer. Ask the constitutional lawyers what they're doing about it.
But some say that the best judge of performance is the person who's living that life. The person who knows how a shoe hurts is the one who's wearing it, and not one who is studying how the shoe is hurting the person who's wearing it. Now you are a Zimbabwean, you stay in this country. Are you happy?
Am I happy?
Yes, Father, with the manner in which those who are in government are using the document that you helped craft to run this nation.
Happiness is developmental. You'll be a fool. I would be a fool to call myself I'm happy, because happiness is developmental. Development has to do with continuum of doing things better always.
Are we doing things better always in this country, in your view?
Better means there is room for it.
Is there?
I think so. I think so. If there isn't, point those things out. That's the purpose of civic education, for people to point out, this we don't like, that we like, this we don't like. Once you have civic education, you don't have to go to a dictionary to find out how to spell civic education. People will spell it for you. The life that people live, people will tell you, we are happy, we are unhappy, we thank you for the improvement, but do better, or we are totally unhappy. People will continue to do that. It's cheaper, actually, to deal with educated people, and especially people who have civic education, which is taken as paramount. It's cheaper. But you'll be an idiot if you think you frighten people by doing things behind closed doors. You're being an idiot. Because thou shalt not rest until those people will show you that they are not happy. But it is cheaper when you educate people. And the people will be there for you to just to tell you the rightness and the wrongness. The rightness and the wrongness of what we call the quiddity, the whatness of an issue is told by anyone, whether they've been to school or they've never been to school. You don't have to go to school to be a human being. But you need to have the conscience to be a human being. Let's go to the next position.
Father, I just want to hear from you. South Africa just went to elections, and they came out with a government. Does this give you hope on the future of Africa in terms of maintaining peace through elections?
Well, let's wait and see. You know, the taste of the food is in the eating. that they did what they did, South Africans. God bless them. But they have to follow what they agreed that is what needs to be done. They have to put into practice. The praxis is very stubborn. Praxis continues to show its wrongs where it is not being practiced. And we wish them well.
Do you think Zimbabwe has anything to learn from the or other African countries as well?
That's the purpose of this is part of SADC. South Africa is part of SADC. And South Africa was one of the last beacon of SADC. The meaning of SADC was the former frontline states. In case some of you don't understand where SADC comes from. The former frontline states. And South Africa was the last beacon with the frontline states. And when South Africa it got its majority rule, and then SADC starts. And we wish them well. And they are the last born child of the African continent. And God bless the Organization of African Unity 1963.
So, just after our own elections, SADC that you talk about, it's through its election observer mission, which was led by the former vice president of Zambia, said that the elections did not live up to our own standards, our own constitution as Zimbabweans, and they came very short to just saying these elections were a farce. In fact, they said that in other words, but yet SADC has done nothing about it. Now, with this silence of SADC on issues that an arm of SADC has pronounced, does this give you hope as a center of initiative of African peace in dealing with elections as a lasting solution for peace?
It is possible.
How?
Do it again.
A merry-go-round that keeps you at the same place?
It's not a merry-go-round. You do it until you get it right. The purpose of doing things until you get them right assists us to ensure that what is right continues to be perfected. Perfection is not perfect. And so one has to continue to do things better. That's the purpose of us Center for Peace Initiatives in Africa when the United Nations Africa Desk decided that 30 years ago now. It was because they were saying the Africans who were in the United Nations had been following the United Nations where things have been good, where things have not been so good, where things have been needed improvement. And therefore, that the Africa that the United Nations was having was an Africa which was almost every place on the African continent was afraid, except Harare. And therefore the issue was, let us continue to look at ourselves. That is why the Center for Peace Initiatives is an initiative so that we continue to relook at what has been done by our forefathers. That's the purpose. So we cannot sit on our laurels and say, oh yeah, every country now in Africa is independent. Independence is not sufficient because it is only one side, one show, which has to start bringing people to have food and can manage to take their child to school. When the parents can manage to feed their children, when the parents can manage to educate their children, when the parents can afford to send their best, the school of their choice, those things continue to be always forthcoming. So it is not an issue which you can just say the door is closed. We don't close doors on this planet Earth. Only fools will do.
Father, I just wanted to just come to you as a person. You have had a distinguished life as a man of faith, but what have been the biggest highlights for you?
Biggest highlights in what?
In your life, something that you look back and enjoy and say, this has been one of your most fulfilling moments.
Fulfillments are not easy to come by. As a Jesuit, we do not go to the superlative, we go to the comparative. I think I would laugh at myself like an idiot to say my happiest moment, because there are no happiest moments in life. For me as a Jesuit, trained as a Jesuit, I've been a Jesuit over 50 years now. We look at life comparatively. So, comparison has no superlative.
But wouldn't you think that the moment you saved this country from bloodshed and you went and spoke in the ear of President Robert Mugabe to say people don't want you anymore, step down, and he listened to you as a father of...
No, I didn't say people don't want you anymore. People still loved him, but they were saying, Zakwana, Gushungu, let's move on.
Wouldn't that mark as one of those amazing moments in your life?
No. I've done that before.
Which occasion was this that you did it before?
Well, if you have read my book, it can tell you, Man in the Middle, that at one point in 1976 in UMP, Uzumba Maramba Fube, was put on the firing squad by Rhodesian armed forces. But I'm here today. So if we don't go into comparative, we keep into comparatives. Life is comparative. That's, as a Jesuit, that's how I learned my, and I'm happy that life is comparative. things can always be better.
As we close, Father, what words of wisdom, advice, and peace would you want to leave to the people of Zimbabwe listening to you, and Africa as a continent, as we soldier on in the comparative?
Well, the people of Africa, I would say the people of Africa, and especially those who are members of the ruling class, they should realize life is sacrosanct. Human life is sacrosanct. And today we say every life is sacrosanct. Because this planet Earth has a life. It's sacrosanct. If we mess up with the life of the planet Earth, it will mess us up. So, whatever has been created, whatever we've found in this life, it's sacrosanct. Meaning, it is sacred. The sacredness and the sanctity of humanity is that we were created in the image of and likeness of God. That for the people who rule Africans in Africa must take into account, because they shall be accounted for. Themselves they shall be made to account for by God.
I want to thank you very much, Father Fidelis Mkonori, eminent Zimbabwean, a father of faith, an inspiration to men, a writer of books, something that most of us failed to do. But through your writings, you have left a legacy, you have left a rich history for Africans and young people like myself to understand the things that happened before us and to also have a peek into the future through your writings. We thank you very much for that rich repository that you have left. You have put in the body politic of this country. Your parting words, Father, very strong, very incisive. Human life is sacrosanct. Never should we allow people to walk into the halls of power and wealth on the blood of others. Human beings must be respected. Those in power have an obligation to protect the weak, have an obligation to ensure that humanity is protected and development is respected. Now here, I was in conversation with Father Mkonori, whose life history is clear as his book, Peace Runs in My Blood. Has always been looking for avenues for peace, has always spoken truth to power, and has gained respect from across all political divide. Rise up to his legacy, rise up to his vision. Africa, peace is possible. Africa, elections are an avenue to attaining full peace. Until next time, thank you for joining us on this The Free Talk in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation for Freedom here on Heart and Soul TV and radio. And I, your host as usual, Dara B. And I was in conversation with the luminary, Father Fidelis Mkonori. Thank you very much, Father.
Thank you.